It's good to speak with you again. Long, this is going to be interesting discussion on Omni-Channel in China. Before we start, can you provide a brief background of yourself?
Yeah. Thanks. It's nice to speak to you again. So my name is Long Wong. I'm currently the COO for Youko.com. We are the leading distributor retailers for online cosmetics. We work with brands like Estee Lauder, L'Oreal Group, LG Group, and among many others to set up their online distributions, Tmall, VIP Shop, and JD, and etc. Previously, I also have experience in offline apparel retails, and I used to work for Amazon in the US and was sent to China as the head of operations back in 2006. I also hold an MBA from MIT.
Thank you. So can you talk about Omni-Channel in China? What is the current status of this?
Well, that's the latest supply chain and retail trend, right? So it mostly got a lot of attention based on Jack Ma's speech back in October about new retail. Well, new retail is actually nothing but new. It's just back to the retail itself. Well, for the longest time, the things that we know about retail is have offline shops, and in China that means a lot of franchisees for nationwide distributions or distributors. And with the e-commerce come along, that kind of have some sort of disruptive to the offline model, because in the past the sales, especially through distributors, break off by region, and they use a lot of franchisees or distributors for the nationwide distributions, which means that the brands will separate the sales, will split up the sales into many individual regions, and for them to run their own supply chain, they basically have a second layers to distribute their products. Now with the e-commerce, that kind of become centralized. There's the geographic separation has been broken down, and we are connecting to the customers directly. And as e-commerce grows into a significant part of any brand's retail pie, that introduces a lot of channel conflict. So the new idea of new retail is basically retail, no longer separate by channels, meaning offline or online, but how to see as a whole. But that bring in new dimensions of challenges to supply chain. First of all, in terms of the inventory ownership, because, as I said, many of the brands, they used to work with distributors and franchisees. They do not have total visibility into their inventory positions. And when you back into trying to integrate the two of both well, I mean that it bound to be difficult, because you don't have visibility in your supply chain, and you don't know where your inventories are. You don't have the exact data of where your end customers are. And then with that in mind, how to integrate the service, how do you split the incentive schemes, and how do you split the profit? That also require a lot of new business model, and they have a lot of new thinking, and that is bringing challenge to a lot of the omni-channel play. That's why the new retail is not a thing that can be easily set up and to push forward.
So what kind of business models or new ways of approaching supply chain are needed?
Okay, so I think a lot of brands, there's two ways, right? From the top line point of view, is how do you introduce the sales to bring in incremental profits and sales, and also market share. I think that in conjunction with with the new economy in China right now, it's very different from 10 years ago, when the consumer sectors, the retail and the economy as a whole are growing very fast in double digit or even high double digit. Now with the overall economy slowdown, the growth is slowed down to the 6-7% of GDP growth. That gives very little leeway, very little room for brands to grow. So many of brands are even struggling. Now with that in mind, with the smaller growth, it makes it a lot harder to try a new business model. So So you have some brands that are working on the top line, is that how to bring in the new growth with the omni-channel. It become a more marketing play, which may not be, which we need to be aware of, because how does that marketing, how does that investment in your channels or marketing will bring in additional incremental sales and profit. Now on the supply chain side, on the other hand, we really is back to the basics. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, inventory visibility. How do you know where your products are? Getting the most better CRM, knowing your consumers, having those information with a lot of the big data, with the information you get, the more direct information you get from the online channel that a lot of brands have been involved in, they can be much better and more efficient in delivering your value propositions, your product, and distribute your product to the consumers in a more direct and efficient manner. Now, so those top line and offline approach. I think the challenging part is that the bottom line, the supply chain part, really needs time to establish and to build a system and process around that. While the top line, there's always the pressure of being faster, being better than your competitors, and how to balance the investment on both sides is a dedicated balance.
And do you have any recommendations then for supply chain managers or executives?
I think for supply chain managers in China, the challenge always is that how do you change fast enough or to be accommodative enough to meet the top line growth or changes that is occurring. At the same time, how do you be risk averse enough to protect your bottom line, to not to back your whole house onto something that may not materialize. So in general, the strategy I think most supply chain manager can employ is to have a mix of in-house and outsource strategy. How to use some of the outsource partners to solve some of the supply chain problems while building your knowledge and expertise in-house. That again, there's no good answers, but there's always a mix of having partnership, having people that you trust and that can deliver to mitigate your risk, at the same time to try to leverage a lot of solutions or budding solutions that is happening in the supply chain area.
Are there any success examples you might be able to share about some outsourcing partners that were working or that could be a good way to go?
Okay, so I will use Youco.com as an example. As many of you may know, that the cosmetic is actually quite slow in terms of adopting new channels. They are quite late to e-commerce, like much later than apparels and other categories. Now, so as the cosmetics companies, the big firms that really value their brand equities and your marketing channels, as they move online, they face the challenge of how do you maintain the brand image, not to risk any of those. How do you maintain the price point, but at the same time be able to achieve the sales? There are also a lot of finance, accounting, and corporate governance issues that if they have to go through everything in-house, it will be very difficult. And there's also the problem with the talents of managing a fast-growing channels. So that's why how Youco.com has been able to come in, helping a lot of these international brands maintaining a very high standard of service and brand image. At the same time, able to absorb some of the flexibilities in terms of sales and marketing, in terms of execution, dealing with local platforms like Tmall and JD to achieve the sales growth and the e-commerce ambitions that these cosmetic brands does. And moving forward, I mean, for the past few months, past years, we have been moving on a lot of the omnichannel initiative, like working with the offline, the brand's offline counters and how to integrate some of the service offering, the sales offerings. As many of you may know, Alibaba Tmall has been really pushing for a lot of the online-offline integration, the new retail integration, and we provided the technology to integrate the supply chain solutions to fulfill the needs for Tmall and as well as meeting the brand's supply chain constraint. So I mean, so picking a partners, I always say that there's two kind of partners in China that you can pick. One is a quality long-term play that is a strategic match for your strategic initiatives, and the other kind is more a low cost. It's more a play on trying to save money and meeting some short-term needs. So when companies, supply chain manager, when they look for partners, they need to understand first thing about what are they looking for. So if they are looking for cost, then be prepared for the risk that they may come along. They may not be very consistent. But if you look for a long-term partner that can help you solve the problem, then it's really important to understand your partners, understand their capabilities, and I would say also bring an element of trust, because sometimes trust goes a long way in terms of a successful partnership. Trust meaning in terms of how to execute, in terms of spending time to communicate your requirements, communicate your bottom line, communicate your strategic goal, so that your strategic partner that you choose, who should be capable and is a sustainable partnership and business, they can help you to achieve your strategic goal.
And thank you for sharing today, Long.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome. It's great to talk to you again.